When I read this story, the first thing that came to mind was my mother. She has been working in an office for 20 years, and I have seen it all. Injustice, pressure, and how often silence is power. This is not just a story for views. It's a real experience. I make videos like this so that people can recognize themselves and avoid making the same mistakes. All names, companies, and addresses are fictional, but the essence is very real.
I knew something was off the moment he walked in carrying that $3,000 briefcase like it had earned the promotion instead of him. Evan Locke didn't shake hands, didn't introduce himself. He scanned the room like he was pricing livestock, then zeroed in on me. Quiet corner desk, 3 monitors, black coffee, a shipping manifest open like scripture. Legacy operations. He muttered loud enough for everyone to hear, like I was the office ghost. That was day 1. By day 2, he was telling people he planned to clean house. Day 3, he held a town hall where he used the phrase digital revolution, like it came with a tax deduction. No one mentioned that 98% of our delivery guarantees were locked in by the very routing system he just called outdated code. I didn't argue, didn't flinch. I just clicked over to a new terminal and activated a diagnostic on our port sinks. 32 active lanes, all green, all mine. Hey, if you've been listening this far, take a second to like the video and subscribe. 97% of listeners don't, and it really helps keep stories like this alive. I promise, it gets better. Anyway, I'd built the platform from scratch during the dark days of back orders and customs purgatory. While execs played golf and interns took selfies with cranes, I was buried in freight corridors, tariffs, and slot reservations. My LLC, Titan Nav Systems, had partnered with North Pier under a development license. I wrote the language myself. I knew every semicolon, every backdoor, every silent trigger embedded in that architecture. Not because I wanted to protect myself, because I didn't trust anyone else to protect the company. Laka didn't bother asking. He sent in consultants with oversized screens and predictive graphs that looked like casino jackpots. One of them left a USB drive plugged into my system overnight. Cute. I cloned the device, air-gapped it, and flagged the access attempt as breachlight, still said nothing. By Friday, he'd set up a new routing dashboard that looked like a PowerPoint theme had crashed into a weather map. No integration, no compliance, no version control. I watched from my station as they tried to schedule container routing with their shiny toy. 2 shipments looped back to origin. One got stuck in customs for lack of pre-clearance. And still, Locke smirked like he'd reinvented maritime law. He made a show of ignoring me. I made a career of being underestimated. I kept my badge. I kept my silence. But I also kept one very important clause. Clause 7.4c. Tucked neatly inside the licensing agreement for Titan Nav's back-end routing console. It wasn't just a legal firewall. It was a kill switch. And the day he tried to take what wasn't his, it was going to light up every port from Rotterdam to Savannah like a Christmas tree. He thought I was legacy. He forgot that ghosts don't die. They haunt. The email subject line read, Optimization Initiative Phase 1. Translation? They were coming for my work. Locke had hired a supply chain transformation firm that sounded more like a venture-backed startup than a logistics partner. Bright-eyed consultants in tight suits who didn't know the difference between a port code and a batch route. They showed up with cold brew and buzzwords, all swagger and no steel-toe experience. One of them actually asked me if ships still use GPS or if that was outdated. I smiled. Didn't answer. They installed new dashboards, animated graphs, pie charts that spun when you hovered over them, glowing shipment timers that blinked real time in the corner like that meant something. It was digital cotton candy. Pretty to look at. 0 nutritional value. Worse, they plugged it directly into the North Pier network without a single permissions audit. I watched my platform logs light up with handshake attempts, unauthorized back-end pings from IPs I didn't recognize. 3 of them tried to mirror Titan Nav's access protocol. They didn't even know what they were messing with. I flagged the incursions, documented everyone, emailed legal, emailed IT, silence. Then, on Tuesday morning, Locke summoned me to Conference B, glass walls, no chairs, just an audience of department heads pretending not to listen. He didn't offer coffee, didn't wait for me to sit. You're not part of the future, he said, already half scrolling on his phone. I almost laughed, not out loud, just in the way my shoulders relaxed, the way my breath slowed instead of quickening, because I'd been here before, men mistaking power for position. What he didn't know, what no one in that building ever bothered to learn, was that Titan Nav wasn't just my side hustle. It was the legal bedrock under North Piers Logistics, the routing engine he was trying to overwrite. It wasn't owned. It was licensed. My LLC held the architecture. I wrote the kernel and the access pathways. They didn't even have admin authority, just limited operational clearance under a non-transferable clause-bound contract. Clause 7.4C1. In the event of unauthorized attempt to transfer, duplicate, or override the system's logic tree, all routing sequences revert to neutral state pending security validation by licensor. Clause 7.4C2. Any executive action attempting access without written consent triggers breach notice across all licensed nodes. In plain English, you mess with my system, it stops working. You keep messing, it lets the entire port network know you tried to steal it. But I said none of this, just nodded, took the printout he handed me, some soft attempt at an offboarding outline, and walked out calm. No scene, no panic. That's what made it even better. Because while he grinned over his recycled buzzwords, the system was already clocking every move he made, and I'd made sure the final trigger required a physical token, engraved, serialized, and registered. The kind you can't photocopy or find in a server rack. They'd wanted to sunset legacy. I was already building Dawn. Tuesday, 8:03 a.m. on the dot. I was halfway through a reroute for a stalled customs hold in Veracruz when my inbox pinged with a calendar alert. Meeting WITAG Director Locke. Immediate. No subject. No details. Just location, exec 2B. I closed my laptop, not because I was done, but because I already knew how this was going to go. He wanted a moment. What he got was a mistake. The room was frigid. Locke sat at the head of the glass table like a cardboard CEO, fingers drumming a soft grain leather briefcase he looked like he practiced opening in the mirror. He didn't even bother with a good morning, just flicked the latch and started sorting through papers like I was already gone. "You're done," he said without lifting his eyes. Effective immediately. Behind me, I heard the unmistakable shuffle of security boots. 2 of them, flanking the door like this was a damn crime scene. His assistant stepped forward and handed me a manila envelope. No staples, just a termination packet that probably came straight from the consulting playbook. "Turn over the routing platform," Locke said. "All of it." I stared at him for half a second too long. Not because I was shocked, but because I wanted to remember this. His tone, the lack of eye contact, the casual cruelty of someone who thought he'd already won. So I stepped forward, slow and calm, and reached into my coat pocket, pulled out a small steel disc, engraved, cold to the touch, set it gently on the table in front of him. It clicked against the glass, louder than it should have been. "You'll want to read what's engraved under that," I said. That was the moment the rhythm changed. He stopped shuffling, looked down, hesitated. See, that token wasn't decoration. It was the serialized access key registered to Titan Nav Systems, my LLC. Without it, no system transfer, no operational override, no access to the neural routing matrix that controlled every single shipping lane under North Piers' umbrella. His brows knit for the first time since I'd met him. I didn't move, didn't blink, just watched as he flipped the token over and scanned the inscription. TNS, Licensed Access Node. Serial 774C, Unauthorized Duplication Prohibited, Security Transfer Protocol Engaged on Breach. His mouth opened, then closed. I didn't gloat, didn't smirk. I just handed him the printed copy of Clause 7.4C that I'd kept folded in my back pocket for this exact moment and walked out of the room. No security escort needed. Let the guards look awkward. Let his assistant squirm. They thought they were playing corporate chess. They didn't know the queen never leaves her board. By noon, the whispers had turned into full-throated confusion. Some junior ops analyst tried rerouting a coal shipment through the Atlantic corridor and got a system-wide rejection. Access denied. License node missing. She thought it was a glitch. She restarted the console 3 times before filing a ticket. Then the warehouse floor got a dozen identical errors. Then 20. Then everything froze. By 1 p.m., nothing at North Pier was moving. Not one container, not one ship, not one yard truck. See that little token I left on the table? It wasn't just a vanity plate, it was the embedded access node, TitanNav's verified hardware identifier. When it's connected, the routing platform recognizes it as the heartbeat of the system. When it's not, it shuts everything down, not out of spite, out of protocol. Clause 7.4c had been tested, notarized, and board approved 2 fiscal years ago. We'd included it after an overseas partner tried to clone our logic tree and accidentally deleted 18,000 reefer pallets in the port of Long Beach. That mess cost $7.4 million and 2 lawsuits. After that, I made the clause permanent. 7.4c1 states, transfer of routing authority requires hardware node match and dual auth verification signed by licensor. 7.4c2, any forced override without compliance triggers nullification of all queued and in-transit instructions. It's not rocket science, it's fail-safe logistics. You don't hijack what you don't understand, and Locke understood none of it. I was sipping lukewarm coffee in the parking lot when I saw the first wave of consultants scatter like roaches. Their glossy dashboards were still running, but the data was frozen mid-cycle. The flashy graphs were showing green, but nothing was physically happening. Ships were just parked. Containers were unmapped. Crane schedules cleared out automatically. The system had revoked their keys. Quietly. Perfectly. One of them had the nerve to call me. Hey, we think something in your code is interfering with the new interface. I didn't even pretend to be surprised. My code isn't interfering, it's protecting. Click. I wasn't just confident. I was calm. Because this wasn't revenge. This was architecture doing what it was designed to do. The same way a locked vault doesn't open for just anyone with a smile and a job title. Locke, of course, still hadn't grasped the depth of his mistake. He tried calling in legal, tried talking over the CTO on a conference call, tried ordering a fresh access key from IT like you could just Amazon Prime your way into a sovereign codebase. But none of it mattered, because the code didn't care who barked loudest, the contract didn't bend for ego, the freight didn't move unless TitanNav said it could. And TitanNav, that was me. It started like a hiccup in the Gulf lane, just one idle cargo vessel circling off the Houston Channel, waiting for clearance. Then came a call from Rotterdam, 2 containers rerouted back to origin without instruction. Within the hour, it was 3 shipping queues, stalled cold. No exports, no customs windows, no manifest verification. The port ledger just blinked in place like it forgot how to breathe. Every reassign request triggered the same response. Authorization key invalid. Reassign request denied. I imagine Locke must have thought it was a software bug. He probably barked something into Slack like, "Get it on this now," before strutting into the ops center, shirt perfectly pressed, thinking a password reset would fix it. But the system didn't need a reset. It needed respect. And the serial verified token he'd tossed aside like a paperweight. He tried to override manually, entered root commands with a half-literate grasp of what he was even touching. I could picture it, his face turning redder with every command rejected that popped up. He didn't know the platform had already flagged him. TitanNav's compliance protocol didn't just log unauthorized activity. It fought back, quietly, automatically. 2 years ago, after a shady subcontractor tried cloning our backend during a routine maintenance scan, I rewrote the entire update pipeline with embedded tripwires. The board had approved it without question, buried under security reinforcement in the annual roadmap. What it did was simple. If the system detected replication from a non-node device, it froze everything. Live queues, pending updates, in-transit edits, all of it. Locke's flailing attempts to force access triggered every trap. The compliance bots came online like silent assassins, no pop-ups, no alarms, just flags sent directly to legal, IT, the CFO, and maritime risk. One of the consultants tried unplugging the console. The bots flagged that too. At 2:42 p.m., the entire East Coast port sync reset itself to safe mode. Routing halted. Container drift initiated. Logistics ops were reduced to whispers and staring contests. And still, Locke kept pacing like a man who thought yelling harder could change the shape of a key he didn't own. He hadn't just pulled the wrong thread. He'd unraveled the whole damn sweater. And me? I wasn't even in the building. I was at the water's edge, watching cranes swing to stillness, sipping from a thermos I'd filled before they walked me out. My phone buzzed once, an automated ping from the Titan Nav monitoring log. Breach protocol engaged. Hostile replication blocked. Ledger frozen. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. The freight had stopped moving, but the message, it was already in motion. By 10 Dawas a.m. the next morning, the glass walls around logistics looked like aquarium tanks, full of people drowning, no one swimming. Phones rang without being answered. Slack channels lit up and froze mid-argument. And then, the head of legal, gray suit, tight voice, always 3 decibels louder than necessary, came storming in like someone had set fire to the law library. Who gave Locke clearance to touch routing? Nobody answered. Nobody could. He held up a printout like it was a court summons. Marine underwriters just voided 5 active policies. 5, due to compromised routing verification. Translation. Without Titan Nav's licensed access node in play, the insurance considered all automated shipping data unverifiable, which meant any in-transit claim, any dockside discrepancy, any delay was now North Pier's financial problem. And the quarterly shipment pledge to Helix Beverage Corp, already marked as breached. That run alone carried a performance clause with a liquidated damages penalty, $11.2 million, and that was just the first shoe to drop. In the time it took Locke to realize what had happened, I'd already done what he should have. Filed a breach alert with the Maritime Registry and the Federal Trade Network. The report was short and sharp. Unauthorized control attempt by unlicensed executive. Routing system compromised. Licensor access revoked. Clause 7.4c enforcement in progress. I'd written the template years ago, just swapped in his name. Once that notice hits, it doesn't matter how many assistants you have or how nice your briefcase is. You're flagged. Every global shipping partner, customs, insurers, port authorities, gets a heads up that your control systems can't be trusted. And the second they sniff uncertainty, they pull back. Deny dock access, cancel expedites, freeze funds. Helix's procurement lead had already begun legal proceedings before anyone in logistics had finished their first coffee. Word was, their CFO had flown in from Denver overnight, not to renegotiate, to document the breach. Locke still hadn't said my name, but he'd said enough in the logs. His override attempts, his security escalations, they were all time-stamped, all routed through a console he didn't have rights to touch. And I didn't have to lift a finger. Just let the compliance protocol, the contract law, the federal filing system, all of it do the slow, merciless work. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the saboteur. I was the safeguard they never appreciated until they broke the lock trying to steal the door. And now the flood was coming in. By Thursday morning, the boardroom stank of desperation and citrus disinfectant. They'd move their emergency session to one of the investor lounges, hoping no one would hear the implosion echoing off the floor-to-ceiling windows. But word had already spread. Half the logistics floor was running on decaf and dread. The other half had updated their resumes. The board had finally done their homework. Legal confirmed what I'd known from day one. Titan Nave's routing engine wasn't just integrated, it was sovereign, licensed, protected under a dual-party clause that required my signature, my token, and my consent to operate. The contract had been reviewed, notarized, filed with both Maritime Compliance and the Federal Trademark Archive. Clause 7.4c wasn't buried, it was bolded. And Evan Locke, the man who'd dismissed it all as legacy tech, he'd fired the only person with authority to release it. Me. HR's override packet, signed in triplicate and smugly filed, had no legal standing. They hadn't just tripped a wire. They'd walked into a minefield with their eyes wide shut. That afternoon, I received a call from the chairman's office. Not an assistant, not a scheduler, the chairman. His voice was steady, polite, maybe even a little reverent. Would you consider reinstating access under a revised contract? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. My attorney, who'd been quietly observing every move from a safe, well-compensated distance, spoke for me. That depends on the settlement terms, and Mr. Locke's resignation. There was a pause. Just one beat too long. Then, understood. We'll prepare something formal. The call ended. I didn't smile, didn't celebrate. I just looked out my kitchen window at the loading dock across the highway and sipped my tea. One of the ships had finally been tugged back into queue. 3 days late, millions lost, reputation bleeding. Funny, I thought. The man who'd called me non-essential was now the only thing standing between the company and recovery. And that wasn't a compliment. It was an obstacle. Locke tried to save face, of course. I heard through a vendor that he claimed he stepped back for personal reasons, but no one bought it. Not after the internal memos started referencing systems access reconciliation and revoked executive permissions. They could dress it up however they wanted, but in the back-end logs, his ID had already been deactivated, and mine reinstated, fully. The compliance session felt more like a surgical procedure than a meeting. Quiet. Precise. No small talk. Just a room full of grim-faced department heads watching a screen as the routing system rebooted under Titan Nav's full oversight. My oversight. I didn't gloat. Didn't even sit at the table. I stood near the back, arms crossed, while my technical liaison walked them through the console reinitialization. The process was surgical. Node verification, serial handshake, timestamp confirmation, dual auth unlock. Every executive credential had to be reissued. Finance, logistics, procurement, legal, new access levels assigned, tokens matched, remote authorizations restored. One by one, they logged back in. Green lights returned to the dashboard, except for one name. Evan Locke. His login failed silently. No error message, no fanfare. Just a red access blocked marker that sat there like a tombstone. Nobody mentioned it. Nobody had to. By then, the damage had already made its way through every channel that mattered. His resignation came in that evening. A flat PDF attachment with no body text, no cause cited. Just the usual language, effective immediately. Transition of responsibilities. Grateful for the opportunity. It was sent to HR, legal, and the board. I got a forwarded copy from someone in compliance who added no subject, no message, just the file. He disappeared as unceremoniously as he had tried to dismantle everything. No press release, no internal farewell, not even a LinkedIn update. The company didn't thank him. They didn't blame him either. That was the beauty of institutional shame. It doesn't yell. It erases. But the system remembered. During the back-end code audit, I came across a revision history log from the day he tried to force manual control. Entry ID var 410.487. Time-stamped, tagged with his user credentials. It had attempted a replication push. The audit team paused when they saw it, unsure what to do. Delete it, I said. From the logs? They asked. No, I said. From the tree. It wasn't vengeance, it was pruning. Removing dead code that served no purpose except to remind the system of the one time it almost failed. So they wiped the revision, one line, gone. No press ever mentioned his name. The board called the incident a temporary routing lapse. The consultants were quietly dismissed, but the shipping lanes reopened, the queues cleared, and the ledger reconciled. And behind every successful handoff, every container routed with a 99.7% delivery confidence score, there was my platform. My name wasn't on the executive roll, but it was in every byte that made the freight move. 6 months later, I was on my porch in Wilmington, mug in hand, watching the sunrise spill over the docks like it always had. Indifferent, gold, familiar. The house was quiet. No pings, no calls, no crises. Not anymore. I'd trimmed Titan Nav to a lean 2-person operation. Me and a systems auditor who spoke in quiet keyboard strokes and loved old ships as much as I did. That morning, my inbox buzzed once. Subject. Auto ping, route confirmation, NP346A, Atlantic Run. The sender, North Pier Freight, unchanged, automated, still wired to forward every final routing validation through Titan Nav. That wasn't vanity, it was contract. Every vessel that ran through our architecture still needed a handshake on completion, proof of compliance, sync confirmation, route integrity signed off by the licensor. Even now, after the firings, the rebrand, the leadership shuffle, that clause still pulsed in the core of their operation. Not because they wanted it, because they needed it. I clicked the ping. It opened like it always did, time-stamped, green, Perfect. The ship had hit all 3 ports, cleared customs, delivered manifest on schedule. No errors, no edits, no questions. I didn't respond. Didn't have to. The silence was the confirmation, just like we'd designed it. Funny thing about systems, the best ones don't scream when they work. They don't take up space. They don't seek credit. They just do what they were built to do and outlive everyone who underestimated them. Evan Locke's name had never resurfaced. The board shuffled through 2 more shipping leads in 6 months. Both stayed far away from the routing core. One even sent me a bottle of whiskey with a handwritten note that just said, "Lesson learned." I didn't drink it, but I kept the note. Because what they finally understood, what it took millions in penalties, weeks of paralysis, and one very expensive mistake to learn, is that some structures aren't replaceable. Not because they're legacy, because they're alive. And 6 months later, the ship still checked in.